Well, today we're very much honoured by the presence of Peadar Tóibín, the leader of Aontú party. I think one of two All Ireland parties. Would that be right, Peadar?
Yeah, I think obviously people before profit now say that they're an All Ireland party. The Green Party sometimes trade as an All Ireland party as well, but I don't think they have any All Ireland ambitions, to be honest.
No, you slipped from number 2 to number 4. Anyway, well, you're very welcome, and I'm sorry we hadn't organised an earlier date. Do you want to kick off, Pat? Have you any question in mind, or?
Yeah, Peadar. Obviously the stupid question, but the obvious one is that there's an election on Thursday. How do you expect to do?
Well, this is a pivotal election for the north of Ireland, I believe. We expect to do well. This is our first assembly election. We have an enormous response at the doors. It's absolutely incredible. Now, I know every party will tell you that, but we have the situation where cars are stopping on the main roads to our canvassers, thanking us for giving them an alternative. People are running down the street, shaking our hands over the last number of weeks. We're really buoyed up and buzzed by the level of response that we're getting. For example, our membership in the 6 counties has more than doubled just in the last 7 weeks. And you know, while our poll ratings are being hidden in the others box by a number of the media organizations, they're actually significantly growing as well. We have 12 fantastic candidates. This is our biggest engagement in terms of candidates, in terms of numbers, and we also have really good quality candidates as well. So I have no doubts that we are actually going to be competing for seats in at least 4 constituencies. I'm not saying that all of those are going to fall our direction, but we're going to be competing in those constituencies for sure. And I think people will be very surprised in relation to the level of energy that's coming into his way at the moment.
Okay, could I ask you, Pat, or Peadar, most people would see you as having left Sinn Féin over the issue of abortion, and they would see Aontú as being essentially an anti-abortion party. Is that unfair?
But completely unfair, and we used to get thrown with that sentence in the South, you know, in our first year of existence. But the truth of the matter is, everybody that can see the work that we're doing, we are focusing on a whole range of issues in the last number of years. So people have come to us from Sinn Féin for sure. Many people have come to us from the SDLP. Actually, the SDLP vote and membership have been more mobile. I think one of the big stories of this election is going to be just, you know, the difficulty that the SDLP are in terms of votes. And I would actually go as far to say that Colm Eastwood's leadership after this election, when the results come in, will be in trouble within the SDLP, given how bad they're going to do. We've also had a large number of Fianna Fáil members who have come to us from different political parties. And the big chunk of our membership are people who've just never been involved in politics before.
Why are they coming to you, Peadar? Is it a particular reason, do you think, or?
There's a couple of reasons. The political parties, north and south, have become very uniform in their political presentation. So there's an awful lot of values that would be held very dearly by people within society.
Are you referring to abortion there? Is that
abortion would be one of them, but you know, there's a whole range of issues now at the moment where, let's say, the political parties would be seen as woke and would be very little reflection of your everyday family's experience and points of views. So on the issue of abortion, there's been massive change in the north, obviously, just in the last 2 years. So abortion is now legal up until birth for children with disabilities. Now, that's quite shocking. And I know that most people in the nationalist community, when we say that to them, are amazed and shocked by that. And they just think that there's the lack of compassion and the discrimination that's inherent in that law is incredible. And when you explain to people how that happened, they're also quite shocked. So Sinn Féin's Mary Lou and Michelle O'Neill went to London a number of years ago and campaigned hard for London to impose this legislation on Ireland. Now, in 200 years of republicanism, the idea that Republicans would ask London to impose legislation on Ireland would have been, you know, an anathema. You know, Republicans have been telling London that they have no business in legislating for Ireland for 200 years. So there's been a sharp break with Sinn Féin and that Republican tradition. In terms of the SDLP, most of the SDLP membership and base and voters, would have, like Aontú, supported the equal right to life of everybody. And Aontú is the only nationalist party at the moment who is a human rights party that's basically saying to people that all human rights should be protected, including the right to life, and nobody should be discriminated against. But we also have one, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, it does sound from what you're saying, though, that at the center of your platform, at least, is the notion of abortion. I'm sorry, I don't want to bust in. Pat, do you want to come in there? Ask a question.
Peadar, no, another thing, and I'm deliberately not being insulting. I really genuinely mean that, but I'm going to be insulting in the sense that the question has to be asked this way. Every time I get into a discussion on social media with what I consider almost abortion fascists, they turn out to be Aontú supporters. Now, by the way, everybody's entitled to a view on abortion, and I am not a supporter of abortion, but I think the greatest supporters of abortion are the pro-life people who seem to be intent on ramming their views down everybody else's throat. Now, I remember asking a very well-known cleric in Northern Ireland many years ago, I don't have a daughter, by the way, Peadar, but I said, if my daughter got raped and she was pregnant, and I was faced with a dilemma, I said, what advice would you give me? I'll just call him Father. And he says, Pat, I would tell you to do what's best for your family and don't pay any attention to me. But what it seems to be a lot of people, and please understand where I'm coming from, and Aontú is saying, you have no right to make that decision. Is that not a problem for you?
Well, first of all, Aontú obviously condemn rape in all circumstances. And in fact, we have been to the fore of looking for rape crisis centres to be opened up throughout Ireland. Even in my own constituency, I've been fighting for a rape crisis centre to be opened up. The government refused to open it up in County Meath, and mothers have to travel to different constituencies for that. Secondly, we've been looking to invest in proper policing so that the people who are the perpetrators of this violent, shocking crime are actually put in jail in relation to this. But Pat, I'll say to you this: it is unbelievable that we're framing this debate on abortion on the issue of rape, because 98% of abortions that will happen in the north of Ireland will happen on healthy babies and healthy mothers. Less than 0.1% of the abortions will happen in the case of rape. Now, I think I'm not saying this in terms of yourself, but I think it is disingenuous that most of the debates that have happened in the media happen on the 0.1% of the cases. And yet, like, for example, a newspaper rang one of our candidates in Mid-Ulster, and he kept asking the question that you have just raised, but they never raised the issue that in countries where abortion is available for children with disabilities, that after a while, practically no children are born with disabilities anymore. That actually children with disabilities are screened out and don't get a chance to be born. So in countries like Denmark and Iceland, there are very few children born with Down syndrome anymore because most of them are aborted currently. And actually, the 8th Committee in the south of Ireland had a discussion around, obviously, the reasons for abortions. 85% of the abortions that happen are for socio-economic reasons. They're because mothers don't feel they have the economic ability to have a baby. And the arguments that we would make is that many of the so-called pro-choice elected reps, they create the economic policy that actually make mothers feel that they don't have a choice. So our view in relation to the right to life is the first job that we have is to make sure that there is the economic conditions and supports given to every mother so that she can raise her child to that child's full potential and that she doesn't feel that she hasn't got the economic choice. Right now in the north of Ireland, there are mothers giving birth homeless. And I would say there's very little debate about that in relation to the reason for abortion. And just, I think it's
Peadar, can I interrupt you? Like, we have, and I don't, you're 100% right. I'm not disputing that with anything you said, but tomorrow morning, you're not going to be, Aontú ain't going to be able to change the economic fortunes of this place, nor in the south or anywhere else. And I would take a lot of decisions people make, like there's such things as fatal problems. They're also incest. But no, the point I'm making, Peadar, is surely, and I am, by the way, I have never voted for abortion, but the point I'm making is are you, is Aontú not taking a position that other people don't have rights, that the only people who have rights are the people who are pro-life?
Well, Pat, I think that your right to life is a human right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, do you think human rights are universal?
Yep.
So that means every human being is covered by them?
No, but hold on.
Just
That's like an American lawyer. It's a yes or no question. That isn't a yes or no. If somebody's raped, I'm repeating myself, but I don't have a daughter. But if my daughter was raped, or there was incest, or that somebody told her, look, your child has no chance of surviving, I don't think people like Aontú or anybody else has the right to come into my family and say, I can make a decision for you. I don't want to see maybe my daughter carry a child for 9 months and a doctor telling her after 3 months, by the way, that your child hasn't a hope in hell of surviving.
So listen, I understand that you want to locate this debate in the 0.1% of the situations that occur. And you admitted that you admitted that the right to life is a human right.
Yeah,
so you're asking me, should there be a right to end somebody else's human right? And I don't think there's any human rights should be put in place that gives a person the rights to end somebody else's human right. Because your human rights to life, Pat, is not better or more important or more legal than somebody else's human right. Our view as a political party would be that we all live under the same sky. We are all responsible for each other. And actually, we have a stronger responsibility for those who are weaker, who are smaller, and who are most vulnerable. And just to answer your question there, human rights are universal. And that's the point of human rights. They actually cover every single human being. And an unborn child is a living individual human being.
Right.
I'm the chairman, Pat, hold on a second, Pat. I'm the chairman, and the fact is that this discussion with Peadar's going on the one topic that we said was just one of a string of them. So we'll give it another 3 minutes, okay, Pat?
Can I make one point here as well, because Pat mentioned about Aontú not having the ability to focus on the economics that will help people in relation to their lives. One of our major platforms in this election, and it's a really important platform, is that we're looking to devolve taxation powers from London to Belfast. We believe, like for example, in Scotland, 22% of the investment that's made in public services is generated through local taxation. In Wales, it's about 10%. In this state, it's actually only 5%. So the North has the smallest taxation generation ability of any of the devolved governments. And also, where there is a taxation that has been devolved to the North, for example, corporation taxes 6 years ago, the 5 political parties in the North have refused to actually use it. So all we're saying to people is that, do you want to wake up on Friday morning and have the same 5 political parties that have been in power for the last 15 years, still in power with slightly different numbers of seats, having exactly the same arguments that they've had for the last 15 years. See, the elephant in the room in this election that's been missed, I think, by a lot of political commentators, I'm not including yourself in this, but the elephant in the room is there is major dysfunction in the North of Ireland in terms of, obviously, the executive not working, the North-South Ministerial Council not working, but also in education, for example, there's £750 million hole in the education budget. In housing, there's the number of people who are homeless in the North has doubled in the 15 years those 5 parties have been in power, to 44,000 households currently who are homeless in the North. And in health, there's 250,000 people waiting for more than 1 year in terms of trying to get a hospital appointment. Now, the 5 political parties, most of them, are saying that this election is about who will be first minister. I would actually say it's not about who will be first minister. It's about who will be able to get a house after the election. It's about who will be able to get an operation after the election. It'll actually be about who will be able to pay for the fuel in the car to get to work.
Okay, and Pat, let me. I take a point that you're making. You're pointing out the problems that exist in the North of Ireland, and they certainly are there. How has your party in its manifesto suggested that any of those problems can be tackled and solved?
Well,
give us the idiot's guide to it, please.
Yeah, no, the idiot's guide to it is very, very simple. We believe in self-determination. Aontú is the Irish word for Irish unity and for agreement. And self-determination has been a key component of the economic development of the South of Ireland. Since partition, the wealth and productivity of this nation is flipped from the north to the south. So our aim is to see, can we get energy into the northern economy again? We want to equalize the corporation tax with the south of Ireland to bring in foreign direct investment into this state. If we bring in foreign direct investments, we have no doubt there'll be more job, there'll be more trade activity, there'll be more taxation paid. And if we have those taxes in that are devolved from London to Belfast, we'll be able to make decisions in relation to investing in housing, health and education. Right now, the Sinn Féin Minister for Finance, who's presiding over 44,000 people on the housing waiting list, is diverting 2% of the housing budget towards health. Literally, the policy in the north is to rob one crisis-laden department's budget to give it to another crisis-laden department's budget.
Well,
and that's the elephant in the room here, Jude.
But is he not working with a limited pot, as it were? And are you suggesting then that maybe a change, an equalising of a corporation tax across the island of Ireland would begin to solve that problem and provide new funds?
Absolutely, Jude. That's the key issue here. And I feel that Sinn Féin has not displayed the necessary ambition in terms of trying to devolve powers from London to Ireland. Actually, if you were to surmise the economic policy of the North, of all five parties, it's a policy of economic dependency. Right now, the budget and the ambition of the North is framed by the block grant. The block grant is decided by London ministers, not on the basis of need in the 6 counties, but purely on the basis of what's good for London and for England. So we need to completely break that idea, break that framework, and start to say, let's develop our nation, let's develop our economy on the basis of need within each one of the public service delivery. Let's build the economic energy through corporation taxes being reduced, through also excise. We want to see excise duties brought back from London to Belfast. So for an interim period, we can lower
Peadar,
those.
are you saying there should be tax raising powers, just to get this clear, that there should be tax raising powers available to Stormont?
Well, listen, Pat, that's what we've been talking about as a political party non-stop for the last 3 weeks in this election campaign. That is the key differential between ourselves and the old nationalist parties. Our view has always been that we need to determine our economic levers for ourselves on the basis of our economy here.
But are Sinn Féin not saying the same thing? I thought Sinn Féin were saying that they wanted to have taxation control and be able to raise taxes. That's the one missing element that they don't have, at least one of them.
Jude, you're a political expert. How many times?
Oh, no, I'm not.
But how many times have Sinn Féin said that in this election campaign? And secondly, they've had the power to increase corporation tax for the last 6 years in the North. It's already devolved, and that power has never been used. And for me, that's one of the biggest mistakes, the biggest wasted opportunities in terms of the economic development in the North. And another differential between ourselves and the old nationalist parties are, we want to see reform of Stormont. So right now, Stormont obviously is a dysfunctional political system where, one political party can tear down the house. So we want to change the rules, to reform the political institutions, so no one political party can ever crash Stormont again. So neither Sinn Féin nor the DUP can take it down again. And
hold on, Peadar, how do you do that if it's a sort of a compulsory coalition in place? Sure, if the unionists pull out and they said then, sure, the 1994 Good Friday Agreement is out the window.
But Pat, is the Good Friday Agreement working at the moment?
Not really, no. But if a government can go ahead without one of the major parties, it certainly isn't working.
Well, first of all, there's no executive. There's no North-South Ministerial Council. The DUP has said if a nationalist party gets the largest vote, they may not take the deputy first minister. They've even said that they will not resurrect the executive if they don't get your way. Right now, the Good Friday Agreement exists on paper and not in reality.
But hold on, I know, Peadar, and I know but how, if you absolutely tear it away, it's never coming back.
We're not talking about tearing away. We're talking about going beyond the Good Friday Agreement and reforming it. Pat, we're at a crossroads. We either accept the existing status quo, which has led us to this continuous collapse of the political institutions, and which And one of the major problems with Stormont as well is that there's no proper opposition. So nobody's actually challenging the government in relation to what they're doing it. So I actually don't believe that the people of the 6 counties are fully aware of just how bad the economics and the investments and funding of public services are. Most people are not aware of that. Like, I'll give an example. The 5 executive parties took 887 beds out of the health system in the last 10 years, right up to COVID. None of them raised that issue in the media. Why? Because they're all directly responsible for that action. It took Aontú councillor Emmett Doyle in Foyle to put an FOI to find this information out. We broke the story in relation to it. So what I'm saying, Pat, is we have a choice. We stick by a system that's not been implemented, that's not working, that's not delivering for people, or we reform it to make sure that it's a functional democracy. Like, I would ask you, Pat, can you think of another democracy in the Western world whereby the parliament and the executive or the government is crashed with such regularity and for such a length of time over and over again?
Is that maybe because, I'll just answer that for Pat.
Go ahead, because I was having trouble there.
Yeah, would that not be because, in fact, it's impossible, really, to run a successful parliament or assembly in the north of Ireland? Many people are looking to a border poll, either with dread or with anticipation, happy anticipation. What's Aontú's view on that? Might it be that we shouldn't worry too much about Stormont because really it has proved itself inefficient and not working? Should we not be working towards perhaps thinking about a parliament for all of Ireland?
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, Stormont needs to function. It needs to be able to deliver on bread and butter issues. There are children with special needs who are simply not getting the supports that they need currently because the education budget has been reduced on a regular basis. There are people who have cancer, who have heart disease, who have stroke, who have mental health issues, who are waiting for over a year for a hospital appointment. These people need services. End of story. There's no excuse in the world that can tell those people that a political system is allowed to dysfunction to such a level and allowed not to deliver for themselves. That needs to be fixed.
But is the money there to address that terrible problem? And I accept that there's terrible waiting lists.
If there isn't the money, if our ambition is to accept the block grant as the limit to our spending, there isn't the money. So that's why, again, that whole bubble has to be burst, where we had to start breaking out of that. But the difference between ourselves, let's say, in Sinn Féin and the SDLP in relation to Irish unity is we would see ourselves as practical Republicans. So what I mean by that is we see the border as a wall with 1,000 blocks. Each one of those blocks represents a real service or issue in someone's life. So it might be cross-border cancer care, cross-border stroke treatment. It could be a cross-border excise duty, a cross-border ambulance service, cross-border university delivery, cross-border educational curriculum. All of those individual aspects of human life that affect how people live. So what we want to do is tackle each block individually. So to delete the barrier that's caused there and to start to deliver services on an all-Ireland basis. I carried out a research document about 3 years ago. It was on behalf of the Oireachtas Enterprise Committee. It was the first report carried out in the Dáil on the All-Ireland economy since partition. I interviewed hundreds of people in the north of Ireland about how they felt we could grow the All-Ireland economy. Everybody that I spoke to there said very simply, if we plan together, if we fund together, and if we deliver services together, they will be better services, they will improve people's lives, they will cost less, and they'll be more efficient. So in each one of those blocks, we need to stop waiting around for that sunny day when the border poll is going to happen, and start working at reducing the number of blocks in the border.
Peadar, can I follow on?
Reducing that. And just one more point to the camp, just before. I'll give you an example of our practical republicanism. I delivered a bill in the Dáil there a couple of months ago, which passed first stage. And that bill would give speaking rights to Northern MPs in the Dáil. So a Northern MP could sit in the Dáil as of right, ask questions of the Taoiseach or any minister, etc., and basically represent their constituents' views in the heart of the Southern Parliament. We've also passed a motion in the committees, which would allow for Northern MPs to sit on all the committees in the Oireachtas. And that motion is going through the committees at the moment. There's no constitutional bar over any of that. Yeah. All there is the political will to do that. And I would ask you, Jude, like, you know, Sinn Féin have, I don't know, 34 TDs. They have about 400 staff. How is it that it takes a party of one TD to actually implement a bill such as that in the Dáil, or pass motions such as that in committees? It was Aontú that actually sent a letter to the Chief Constable of the PSNI to call him to come down to the Good Friday Agreement Committee to answer questions around policing in places like South Armagh, West Belfast, and in Derry. So we're taking the practical steps day in, day out about reducing the height of the border wall, taking the blocks out. So on that sunny day, when there is a border poll, transition from two states to a unitary state will be easier.
That's a follow-on question that Jude asked you and I'm asking you. I know there's an attitude, I think, from Micheál Martin about kicking the can down the road, don't frighten the horses, and there will be a border poll someday. What's your definition of someday?
Well, first of all, we want to see it within 5 years for a start, okay? Yeah. But can I actually raise something that I find fascinating? And I've obviously been a member of my previous party for 25 years, and it's something that I never saw in that period of time. The amount of people from a unionist background that have emailed me or phoned me or WhatsApped me or sent messages on Facebook to me that have actually said, we dislike Sinn Féin more than we dislike Irish unity. We dislike Sinn Féin more than we dislike the Irish language. We find Sinn Féin a barrier to us engaging on the issue of Irish unity and engaging on the issue of the Irish language. Now, when I was a member of that political party, I never recognized that. I didn't understand what they meant by that. But there is a section of Irish society from a unionist background in the north of Ireland, I believe, that feels so hurt and separated from Sinn Féin that they don't want their type of unity. They don't want their type of language bill, that they don't want to engage with their type of future. And have actually said to us that they respect the fact that we're talking about the unity of Irish people first and foremost. And on that basis, they would feel much more comfortable engaging with us about navigating towards an Irish future. And one of the things that we in Aontú want to do is, and we've raised this issue, and thankfully I think the SDLP have actually robbed it as well, which we're delighted to see, is we've raised the issue of building a New Ireland Forum. And a New Ireland Forum would be an opportunity for civic society, political society from all backgrounds and shades across the island of Ireland to sit down over a period of a number of months to first of all focus on how to ameliorate the difficulties of Brexit, also how to start to build the All-Ireland economy and deliver services on an All-Ireland basis. And thirdly then, to start to fill in the gaps, colour in the picture of what an Irish unified state would look like. And I think that's the process that we need to go by. The idea of holding a border poll on a particular day with no development, no preparation in advance would be a mistake. We need to do that work now.
Are you suggesting that Aontú is the acceptable face of Sinn Féin?
No, well, first of all, we've nothing got to do with Sinn Féin at all. And actually, I would say Sinn Féin see us as one of their biggest threats politically across the island of Ireland. Indeed, it was noted that Mary Lou McDonald nearly had a Navan accent after the last general election. She was in my constituency so much. But anyway, that's another question. But the point is, like, we believe that we can actually reach out to people from a unionist background probably more effectively than that particular party, and we can do it in a manner. I think you might have used the word "scare the horses" there earlier. We can do it in a manner without scaring the horses, in a manner of partnership. And actually, our republicanism is about wolf tone. It's about, Catholic, Protestant, and dissenter being able to be who they want to be to their full extent without fear and a favor. And it goes back to that question at the start, Jude, that you asked in relation to what's the difference between us and many of the other nationalist parties. We would see ourselves as truly a pluralist political party. There is a kind of a uniformity that's creeping into, political discourse in recent times, that there's one type of acceptable nationalist or one type of acceptable individual. We believe actually that the competition of ideas the competition of identities, the differences that exist, actually leads to a richer, better Ireland in the future. And, you know, like, I'll give you another example. Many people believe that reconciliation with unionists should be about the fact that we wear the same political clothes. So, like, Mary Lou's been on the record about talking about Poppy, talking about the British joined the Commonwealth, talking about, you know, orange marches, etc. We would have a slightly different take on that. For me to reach out to my unionist brother or sister, and for me to reconcile properly with my unionist brother and sister, doesn't mean I have to become semi-unionist or take on some of the elements of unionism or even wear any of their political clothing. I can be a full Irish Republican, celebrate 1916 and the values of that, and still reach out, be friends with, live in close proximity to, and work with in government a person who celebrates their unionism, celebrates their Britishness, and doesn't feel they have to wear our clothes either. In actual terms, it's nearly the forcing of people to kind of melt into some middle element is actually threatening to people of both political traditions, if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, we've just 4 minutes left, so there's just about time for one question from me and another one from Pat. My point, you mentioned Sinn Féin and the extent to which unionism recoils from them and is more open to a party like your own. Surely that's not the fault of Sinn Féin. Surely that's the fault of the people who would recoil from them. They would associate, I mean, and the reasons for recoil is because they associate them with the IRA. And we all know that most of the people who are, well, everybody in Sinn Féin at present, virtually, wasn't alive at the time, or certainly was only a child at the time of the Troubles. So
it's funny because
it really lies with the people who would pull away rather than with Sinn Féin.
Well, Jude, it's funny because I actually put one of the emails that we got up on Facebook and it got a massive amount of traction, and some Sinn Féiners came on and criticized and made that kind of point that you made. I can't answer for how a person from the unionist community feels or the rights and wrongs of how they feel. All I can say is that feeling is real, and it's a feeling that is governing their approach to these discussions on unity, on the Irish language and other issues. And all I'm saying is that they have reached out to Aontú, and actually, you know, we have made it, like I have attended meetings in the Methodist hub outside Queen's University. We have made a real effort now to reach out to Protestants and evangelical organizations, sit down with them, not to reduce who we are, but to reach out and understand and respect who they are too. And I believe that journey that we're on actually offers probably a stronger pathway to achieving Irish unity in the future as well.
Okay, that's my question. Pat, you're good one.
Right. The elections this Thursday. I'm going to bring you back to reality. Peadar, Sinn Féin are on 26.2%. I think the DUP and the Alliance are both on 18. There's a poll this morning in the Irish News. They're both on 18.2. The SDLP are way down about 10. I think the UUP are about 12. I'm not even going to ask you that much about Aontú. Where do you think it's all going to end up afterwards, Peadar, when they counting the votes, and I know where do we go from here?
Well, my nightmare scenario is that we wake up on Friday morning with the exact same 5 political parties that have been in power for the last 15 years still in place. And if we are in that situation, we are going to be in a political Groundhog Day. And and all I'm saying is the best way to break out of that political Groundhog Day is to actually vote for change. And it's.
Like, can I stop you 1 second? How do you view the fact that maybe Sinn Féin, for the first time since the foundation of the state, that nationalists, be it Sinn Féin, well, it will be Sinn Féin, would be the first minister, that they would be the majority party if they're on 26% and the DUP are on 18%?
I think there's no doubt that Sinn Féin are going to be the largest party. I think there's no doubt.
Is that not historic?
Well, on one level, it is historic that a nationalist party is the largest political party in the States.
Less than a minute left, Pat.
In the last Westminster election and in the last Assembly election, political unionism has lost their majority. Those days are over. And I think the big message out of this is that political unionism has to realize that it can no longer veto the direction and the future of the North. They don't have the right to veto the direction of the North. And our political institutions need to take that into consideration and ensure that one political party never again collapses the political system in the North of Ireland.
Okay, we'll have to stop there. Peadar, thank you very much. It's
Thanks
been a
very much,
pleasure.
Peadar.
I think we could
Pleasure
have spoken
talking to
for
you.
another hour if time allowed us. But my thanks to you, and good luck. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much. We'll see you
Peadar.
again.
Cheers.
Okay,
Long
Peadar.
before.